Object-oriented programming, which is commonly called OOP, is a programming paradigm that organizes programs around objects and data rather than action and logic. Being a programming concept, it allows programmers to organize things and objects in a modern programming language. Furthermore, it allows an issue to be decomposed into a number of entities known as objects, after which data and functions are built around these objects. Apart from the requirement of defining a class to represent data in an OOP language like C#, there are four essential principles that govern object-oriented programming. These include abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. If all this information interests you to a considerable degree, and if you want to learn how to use .NET to implement object-oriented programming ideas, you have successfully arrived at your destination. So stick around and hang in there as we bring to you some delightful insights pertaining to object-oriented programming and .NET's utility in relation to the same.
If you haven't subscribed for our channel yet, I would request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on notification bell so that you don't miss any new updates or video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoy this video, show us some love and do like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing, so make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure you comment on this video. Any queries or suggestions, I'll be more than happy to respond to all of them. Hi everyone, welcome to .NET OOPS video. In this video, we'll be learning regarding the different concepts of object-oriented programming. So we'll start with exception handling and exploring structures. With that, basic object-oriented programming concepts, it might be encapsulation, polymorphism, etc. Also, abstraction, interface, and inheritance as well. Apart from these, we also learn delegates and LINQ. So why wait? Let's start learning. Now, we shall start learning regarding exception handling and exploring structures. So first, we shall start with exception handling. I'll explain you in general what is exception handling. For people who are starting with the programming language, please don't get confused. So it is very simple. It is just self-repairing procedure inside the code. Okay, I'll explain what it is. Say for example, you have coded for some requirement. But instead of giving the input you have asked, user will give some other input. Say they will give the name instead of phone number. But the code, it is supposed to take only numbers, not the alphabets. So how do you convey to the user that you are giving a wrong input in the wrong place, right? It has to handle the error by itself and put some error message outside to the user stating, please enter numbers only, do not enter alphabets, something like that. So any situation arises where it is causing a problem to the code and smooth running of the code, we will always handle those errors. So this complete procedure, the code handling itself, what is the error caused is known as exception handling. So a problem that occurs during the execution of program is referred to as an exception. To handle that particular exception, we use exception handling. Simple. So I've given example of attempting to divide by 0. Any number, if the user is trying to divide by 0, it has to put up an error stating you are attempting to divide the number with 0, which is not possible. Or try using different numbers. Something like that, the error message can be put up to the user. So if we quickly want to see the syntax, it has three different elements to concentrate on. The first one is try, the second one is catch, and finally, all three elements should be there while you handle any exception inside your code, right? So try particularly, it will always try to fetch what is an exception case. What is the user is trying to do? Catch block will catch, okay, what is the error, what is the exception, and finally we'll decide how to handle and what are the statements it has to display after execution of that particular exception. So that's about exception handling. And you have different types of exception classes in C#. So what are the different types? Commonly occurred exceptions are listed in C# library. By default, it has its own meaning and how to handle. So you can simply use this particular predefined entities inside your code. So naming a few, I have put up input output exceptions. index out of range exceptions. Usually it will happen in arrays. So what happens in arrays, like you always declare 5 different spaces in an array. You try to put up 6th element to it. It will always show you index out of range. That is the space reserved only for 5. Why are you giving me 6th element inside it? So then you have array type mismatch. Say array, as I tell you, generally I'll tell you, if an array means it has to have a single kind of data type inside that. So you are doing int, everything should be int. You are doing char, everything should be char. You are doing something with float, everything should be float. You cannot have mixed type of data types inside that. So array type mismatch is an error it will cause. So null reference, you are pointing to something which is 0 or which is not having any value. Okay. Divide by 0, as I told you, you are trying to divide some number by 0, which is impossible. So what do? You try to handle that particular exception. Apart from that, we have invalid cast, right? Type conversions, when you try to do, you cannot convert from one particular data type to another, then it will always give you invalid cast. And then you have out of memory. If you are trying to put up some extra elements where the memory is filled up already, it will show you out of memory. Okay. Or if it is not existing also, it will show you out of memory. So if trying to search something which is not there in memory, it is out of memory. So stack overflow. Stack is also somewhat like can relate with array. It is having certain size. If you are trying to put up the elements more than the size declared, it will be overflowed. So stack overflow is considered. So that's about the exception classes in C#. So let's quickly have an example on Visual Studio IDE for index out of range. So I can't show you every example. I'm just trying to put up one single example where you can know how the exception will be handled. Let's quickly switch. So here you can find a program where the array is being declared and the maximum size of an array is 4, right? So it is starting from 0 and the maximum length is 4 and you are trying to print 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But what they say? Print 7th memory space where it is not at all present. So let's see how this exception will be handled. Index out of range. Only 4 is there. Again, you are asking me to print 7th space of an array which is not at all existing. Let's see what is the exception and how it will handle. First, I'm trying to debug. Make a good practice to debug before execution, right? It's a good programming practice. Do not directly run the program, compile and then run. So let's quickly see what is the output. So as you can see, the output is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 4 different. It starts from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? There is no 7th space, memory space and array which is reserved. So what does it put up? It put up as an exception has occurred. Index was outside the bound of the array. So the bound is only 4. They're asking for something with 7, so which is out of bounds, right? So that is about exception handling. So this is how it looks like. After learning what is exception handling, we have to continue with the concept called exploring structs. So structs are nothing but structures in C#. Also, same as other programming language. Structure is a value type data type. So it is having certain values which is inside it. So it allows you to combine relevant data from several data kinds into a single variable. So the meaning of this is, as I told you, array has only monotype or the same type of data type inside it. There is a rules that you cannot declare any data type which is heterogeneous. It is homogeneous kind of element. But in structures, there is an option for you to have heterogeneous data type. Heterogeneous means mixed kind of data type. One can be an integer, one can be a float, one can be a char, one can be string. So any kinds of data type mixture can be put up in one single structure. So that is why we use structure in order to use multiple kinds of data type, right? So a structure is created with a struct keyword. You have to know, if you want to create structure, you have to use struct keyword and everything is in smaller case. Make sure while you are coding, you have to concentrate on case sensitivity, right? Where we have to put up capital letters where we have to put up small letters. We have to remember that, right? So there is always an IDE to support you, but it is a good programming practice to learn the syntaxes and declarations properly, right? So let's see an example of a struct. So what I've taken here is struct novels. So what happens in novels, right? Novels means book, right? A book where people read. What are the different elements of that book you can find? The first and foremost thing is of title. The second one is who is the author. Third one is the book ID. If you want to buy something from a bookstore, every book has a separate ID. They scan the barcode and they bill and they give you, right? So that is how it works. So you need three different elements here. Majorly the author. Second one is the title, and you have book ID. Title and author as string, right? And also you have public int book ID. So what happens in book ID? ID contains numbers, right? Have put up int. So you have a mixture of string and integer in the structure called novels. So this is how the structure look like. So quickly we shall see an example of structure in Visual Studio IDE with C# programming. So we should start with the program. I have named the namespace as sample program because I'm showing you a sample of every concept. So apart from that, we have to concentrate on defining the structure. So I have made sure that I've put up comments wherever it is necessary for anybody to understand, right? So public struct person. So person is the structure name which I'm trying to give with access modifier public. Public means it is accessible for any classes or any methods or any functions. So inside struct person, I'm trying to put up his age or her age and the name. Two important elements inside a person. First is name, second one is age. So public string name. Name has a set of characters, a bunch of characters. So it forms a string. So I have named that particular variable as a string. The data type for name variable is string. Apart from that, you have age. Age usually people does not write in words, they write numbers. So 23, 24, 25, anything for the matter, you have whole numbers. People does not use 25.2. I'm 25 years 2 months. I'm 25 years 6 months. People does not use until unless it is necessary. Generally they say I'm 25, I'm 24. It's always whole number. So it's a good programming practice to know the requirement of the user and keep it precise enough. You cannot use float here until unless it has certain emergency requirements or requirement which cannot be crossed. For some entrance exams, they ask particular age, what is month and day also. So generally people does not use those. So I've put up in integer format, that means whole numbers. So that finishes the structure declaration and different data types inside that. So what is a class I've given? Person data. I'm trying to collect data of a person, name and age. You can also add on if you want phone number, address, or any particulars you want, blood group, email ID, anything. So I've just taken only two for now. For instance, it is name and the age. So let's see, I'm declaring person 1, P1 data, P1's data. The person 1 name is Karan and age is 20. So I'm trying to fetch that and display in the output screen. It's very simple. So I'm just trying to run the program. Before running, we have to debug. So I'm starting to debug. If there is no errors, the output screen will be displayed here. There is no error. The data stored in P1, that is person 1 is Karan and his age is 20. So you want to fetch some data, you want to display on the output. So that is how structures work. Now we should learn regarding basic object-oriented programming concepts. Like in this particular topic, we'll be having encapsulation, polymorphism, and different other basic OOPS concepts. And it is common for all the programming language where you can learn these concepts once and use it many times. So let's switch on to the first topic, that is encapsulation. So people who are listening to this particular word for the first time, I think they would not, but still if those kind of people exist, do not worry. I tell you in simple words what is encapsulation, how it works. Say for example, one another meaning for encapsulation is data hiding. Like data will be hidden and it is only visible for the uh, classes or the methods which is permissible to view or use. No other classes or methods or functions can use a encapsulated variable, right? We are just hiding up the data and showing up only to the person who has authority, right? That is how encapsulation will work, right? The process of encapsulating one or more elements within a class or a physical or logical container is known as encapsulation. So, how do you encapsulate the variables or any functions or any methods inside programming? So, you encapsulate by using access specifiers who will act as a security for the variables or the functions which we use in our codes. Okay, there are different levels of security. There's different kinds of access specifiers where you can just declare it as public, private, protected, internal, or protected. So public is common for any class, any function or methods in your program or from some other program. They can access that particular variable. If it is private, it is only for that particular program, complete application or the code, only for that particular code. If it is protected, only that particular class or function or method can access. No other code of that particular code only. We cannot let the variable be unprotected, right? Once it is protected, only for that instance, that method or that function, that class, it is protected. Even other class in the same program cannot access. So internal is only for that particular method or function inside the code, right? So that is how encapsulation work. So let's quickly look into a simple example in Visual Studio IDE. How does encapsulation work? So here is an example for you where I have declared a class as public and sample encapsulation is the name which I have given to the class. So this is access specifier which we use. Public means it is accessible for all the elements inside your code, right? So I'm assigning private to two different variables. One is student name, another is student age. So name is of type string and student age is of integer, right? And after that you have public string name. Again, the string name which we are trying to put up, the student name, is being assigned as public. Okay, the private element which we have declared, that will be public and it can be accessed only by the accessible class, not any other class or function. We are just hiding up the data and letting authorization for certain class, certain method, certain functions to access it. So what is happening here is I'm displaying one name and age of that person. That's about it. So here we are using console.writeLine in order to display the name and age. For that you have to concentrate. In the main method you have object created. So object has been assigned to the name. Name and age is of public type. It is having public access specifier. But here student age and student name is private. That means only this part can access the private declaration of student name and student age. So that is how the encapsulation will work. So quickly, we shall just debug the code. There is no errors, hence it is being executed. So you have a name displayed and a age. So that is how it will display whatever you try to give as an input, it will display on the output. But the data is hidden for any other class which you add to this. Only accessible classes or elements can access the private student name and private student age. So encapsulation is nothing but hiding up of data. Remember this and hope that's clear. Now we'll learn regarding second concept of basic object-oriented programming, that is polymorphism. So polymorphism, I'll tell you, poly means many, morphism means forms, right? One particular name having different forms or different meaning is called polymorphism. So technically, let's learn what is polymorphism. So polymorphism refers to the fact that something exists in multiple forms. So one single name, but having different meaning. So one single interface having numerous functions. So polymorphism is commonly described in OOPS concept, just like I mentioned, one interface with numerous functions. So the same name will be given, but you are performing different functions with the same name. having different forms for the same name. So that's about polymorphism. Coming to the types of polymorphism, you have two wide range of polymorphism, static polymorphism and runtime polymorphism. You can also call it as static and dynamic polymorphism. So what happens in static polymorphism? Here, you will be overloading the method. That means, say for example, you have two different methods in same name, right? And during the compile time itself, the static polymorphism is also called as compile time polymorphism, and another one is runtime. It is also called as static and dynamic as well. Do not get confused. So static polymorphism during compilation time, it will decide which method should I use, which is suitable for the output, and which one should I use in order to give a proper output during the compilation phase itself. But runtime, what happens is it will overriding is the method which runtime polymorphism will use. During the runtime, it will decide which one should I use. Say it, which function do I use, which is having both the name are same, but the elements are different. The parameters are different. Say for example, add is a function. You are having two variables in one add and another add as three variables. So how do you decide? During the runtime, if you decide what should be the result, then it is runtime polymorphism, overriding function usually. And if it is static polymorphism, it is during the compilation time. It is also called as compile time polymorphism. So that's about the polymorphism. Let's quickly check for an example. How does polymorphism really work, right? So you have a class here which is called animal, and you have a function or a method that is eat. So in one, you can observe you have first one here and the second one here. So in first one, the console.writeLine has an writing called eating inside that. Again, in the second one, you have eating bread. If you could notice the class has been derived like class dog. The parent class is animal, right? Animal is the main class, and the dog is kind of animal, right? So eat is the normal methods we have, or normal functions we have, main methods or functions. So here, for the first eat, we are having just eating, and the second eat, we have eating bread, right? So if you could see here in the class test polymorphism, this is the main function actually. This is where the programming or the compilation will start. So main method has dog, object created, a.eat. Which one it will select? It is actually overriding. Let's check how does this work. If it is overriding, the answer should be eating bread, not eating. Okay, just because we have inherited the animal class with the dog derived, right? So let's debug now. So as I told you, it is displaying eating bread. Okay. So one name called eat has different forms and different meaning, right? Eat here is having the word eating, and again one more eat is having the word eating bread. So one element having different forms, and we'll decide which one to use according to the type of polymorphism, whether it is compile time or static, or it is runtime or dynamic. Okay, so that's about polymorphism. Let's learn abstraction, interface, and inheritance. So these are the basic OOPS concepts as well. So first we shall know what is abstraction. People who have heard about abstraction will know what is abstraction, but people who doesn't know, I'm here to make you understand with a simple live example. So first of all, abstraction is nothing but hiding up the backend process and letting only the functionalities to be done to the user. So here, if to make it still more clear, I can give you an example of Gmail. So what are the different perks you have for Gmail as a user? You will have a user ID, password. By using those, you will do a functionality called login, right? After login, you also have one functionality called settings. You can make theme change, you can make some alignments, you can make some different labels or all kind of settings. You have the access, right? Gmail settings, I mean to say. Apart from settings, the next one you have is you can compose the mail, you can attach a document, you can write a good subject line, you can format the content which you're writing inside the mail body by using fonts, which is large size, bold, italic, colors for the fonts, everything, and press the send button. You have an option, basic option of Gmail. Say you log in. You log in using user ID or phone number or Gmail ID with a password and you press login. Do you know what happens after logging in? No. You can only see the front end of the particular interface. You can only see the functionality. You can only help the functionality to process, but you never know what happens in the backend. Yes, people have educated you that that particular username or password will go to the server, get checked in the database. Only when it is matching, it will let you in. Yes. Have you seen how does that travel? How does that get checked in server or database and come back to you, give the access? No, right? When the access is proper, when the credentials are right, the only thing that happens is you will click the login, it will give you access inside your Gmail. So that's about it. But that is what it is. I mean to explain here. Abstraction is only letting you to know the functionality, not the backend process, what is happening, right? So you have two important things you have to concentrate here. Apart from understanding this as a generalized one, let me put that in technicality. So abstraction in C# refers to the technique of hiding internal details and simply displaying functionality. So that is what it is. That I explained with different live example. That's about it. It is a technique where you hide the internal details or the backend process and only show the interface or just the functionality for the user. So apart from these, you have two more elements you have to understand in abstraction. The first one is abstract method, right? And abstract class. So in abstract method, what happens? An abstract method is one that is declared as an abstract. So you have a keyword called abstract. There is no difference between a normal method declaration and abstract. Apart from only thing is we are adding up the abstract keyword inside that. That's about it. You could see in the example which I've given here. It says public abstract void write. So write is a method. Abstract is a keyword. Once the particular method has been told it is an abstract method, you have no chance of having any body for that method. It's not like normal method. It is an empty declaration with a keyword called abstract. So apart from abstract method, you have abstract class. So what does abstract class do? Then abstract class is one that has been declared as abstract. So here also we'll be using a keyword called abstract. Normal class declaration itself. It's like abstract class car, abstract class pen. So something like that. You only add the particular keyword called abstract to the class. And when you make a class abstract, you cannot create any new object for that particular class. The only thing abstract class can do is it can just let you to derive or inherit. It can only do that particular job from any other class. It is not having any new and self-created objects inside it. So that's about abstraction, abstraction method, and abstraction class. So let's quickly switch into the IDE and check with a simple example how does abstraction work. So here you can see a simple example which is namespace as my application sample. I'm showing a sample for you. So you can observe you have abstract class bird. So as I told you, it's a normal class declaration itself, but you will be adding a particular keyword called abstract. And I told you there is no body to the abstract class. There is no object that can be created, right? So abstract method always does not have body. It is also mentioned. So here you can see the abstract method which has been declared. That is abstract void bird chirp, right? So regular method, if you can find out the difference, the only difference is the keyword abstract. And it has body. It has certain uh, element which can be inserted and it can be used to display in the output as well. So it has a body. Abstract void bird chip does not have a body. Apart from that, you can inherit only from the other classes. You cannot create objects for the abstract class. What is an abstract class? Bird is an abstract class. and class cuckoo, bird. Bird has been inherited, derived, and we are overriding that for the method bird chip. So inside that you have one single line, that is the cuckoo says cuckoo, right? This is just a sample. I know people would be smiling, but yes. So the cuckoo says cuckoo is the um, console write line element. That means it will be printed on the output screen. Coming up, main method. How does it work? Cuckoo, my bird, is being declared an object here. My bird is an object. As I told you, object cannot be created for an abstract class, but it can be created for the main method. So when you finish the object creation and assigning the bird chip and stays there, bird chip and stays are the methods. I'll just tell you. See, stays is a normal method, bird chip is an abstract. So how does this particular output looks like? Let's quickly debug and execute here. So this is how the output look like. The cuckoo says cuckoo and cuckoo stays in nest. So this is actually a normal method. This is printed via abstract method by deriving word for cuckoo and again assigning that and making overriding for that bird chip, and we are trying to print the line which was there in console write line. So that's about the abstraction. Now we'll learn regarding another basic OOPS concept, that is interface. So an interface is entirely an abstract class and it is having only abstract methods and properties. What is the feature of abstract method? It is not having any body. As I mentioned, abstract method is not having any body and interface is all about an abstract class, right? So three main important things you have to remember when it comes to interface in C Sharp. The first one is all the methods are only abstract methods inside an interface. All over it is an abstract class, and also the methods which is inside the class is also abstract methods, and it is not having any body. There is no method body. And the last point you have to remember, no instantiation is needed here. It cannot be having any instantiation, right? So there is a simple example here for interface. So I've named that particular interface with a keyword called interface. You have to notice here, you have a keyword called interface, right? So there is an interface keyword here. So what happens? We have given an interface living beings. So inside that, what does living beings do? I have different abstract methods. So that is sleep, eat. You can also add it as walk, run. So anything. So that's about interface. And like you should get a question that she said it is having abstract method. Where is the abstract keyword in the method? I've just written void sleep, right? So always remember one thing. In interface, the method is by default public and abstract methods. You need not mention. If you try to mention separately, it will throw up an compile time error, right? So by default, the interface, because the overall class itself abstract class. So the methods inside that need not use the keyword abstract or the access specifier public. If it is private or protected, it's left to you. You can use according to the situation. But by default, anything, any method in the interface is always having public and abstract keyword attached to it. Default, if you do not mention also, it is considered the same way, right? So that's about the interface. Let's quickly hop into a simple example where we can know more about interface. So it is one of the famous example which I'm trying to put through in front of you. That is, I have declared an interface called drawable. What is the feature of abstract class? It can only be inherited or derived. It cannot have any other methods inside that. It is empty, right? So public interface drawable. So drawable is an interface. It is having a draw abstract method. Okay, I mentioned because I've not mentioned a keyword here, abstract. So void draw. So what is happening? the class square is inheriting the drawable and they are creating a normal draw method where it is printing drawing square. In the next class, triangle is being inheriting the drawable, the main class, and it is also having a draw method which is printing drawing triangle. So inside again you have one more main class that is test interface, right? So in the main method you have drawable which object has been created, it is assigned to square and triangle respectively. The methods which we are using is been assigned to that particular object which we have created. So this is how interface example look like. Let's quickly debug this. See, it is printing both the things, drawing square and drawing triangle by inheriting the drawable class, right? You have to notice that. So that's all about interface. Now we shall learn one more important OOPS concept, that is inheritance. Inheritance in general, I can give you an example. You might have heard certain words, comments from people stating, you look like your father. No, you look just like your mother. You smile like your mother. You are having an habit of standing or sitting or talking to people just like your father. So it is called inheritance. So we have inherited certain characteristics from our parents during with the help of genes. So this inheritance is also similar in programming as well. Here we have two things which we have to know. One is parent class or base class, child class or derived class. So inheritance will always have certain methods and certain functions which is there in the base class which can be derived for the derived class. What is the use of this? It avoids the duplication and recoding again and again. When it is already existing, why can't you use that? Why can't you inherit that in the different class? So that is why the inheritance concept came into existence. So derived class, as I told you, is known as child class. It is descendant of the parent class, right? So parent class or the base class is the main class which you can find in inheritance. The inheritance happens, the class formed is known as child or derived class. So hope this is clear. So in order to derive something from the base class to the like child class or base class to the derived class, you have to use a colon. See, you have to use a colon sign in order to inherit. Here, there is a syntax for the same. Let's check out what is it. So we have access specifier here. Access specifier in the sense, is it public, private, or protected? You have a class, you have a base class name. You can give any name. So again, after that, immediately you have a derived class. Do not forget to notice the colon. Colon in the sense, the derived class has been derived from the base class. Whatever the name which you give for base class, put that here and give a new name for the derived class. So this is all about the introduction to the inheritance. Let's quickly switch up to an example where you can really see how inheritance will work. So here is an example for inheritance. So you can find a class called bike, that is a parent class. It will act as a parent or base class. It has certain methods or the declarations. Public string brand. Brand has been assigned with a name called Bajaj. So it's a bike field. And what is the method? You have a method called horn, right? You will honk or horn, right? So bike, that is a bike method which has been created. So in right line, we have key sound. So I've just kept this sound. Let me not teach you boring stuff. So just to when you listen this, you feel like, okay, what is she telling? So let's listen. So this is just an example for you. So when you horn, actually Bajaj is having certain similar noises here. Okay. So this is key which just comes in. So that is a method for the bike. Apart from that, you have a derived class. You can just notice there is a very but tinge of difference between the derived class and the base class. The B is capital in the name of the derived class, wherein B is smaller in the base class. So derived class is bike with a B capital and you have a BMW model name. Okay, so when you have brand, when you have model name, you can see the brand and this horn. Horn is same for every bike. You should have horn, whether it is BMW or Bajaj or TVS Excel. Also, you need horn, right? Why should you mention again for this the method? So let's derive that from the base class. So the void horn method is being derived into the bike again, the bike child class, which is having the model name BMW, right? So that is also a bike field. So quickly going to the main method, what do you find here? I'm creating an object for bike, which is called my bike. So apart from that, you're just trying to call a method for my bike object, that is horn. So after that, you're trying to display the brand and the model name, right? Display the value of brand field from the bike class and the value of the model name from the, again, one more bike class. So this is how the inheritance will work. So let's quickly hop in and see with debugging how the output looks like. So okay, even though for BMW also, the Bajaj also, Bajaj is a parent class element, BMW is a child class element. Both the vehicles will have horn, which might differ with sound, but here it is kiki. So this is how inheritance will work. Now let's learn regarding delegates and event handlers. So first let's understand what is delegates. So delegate is a reference to a method in C sharp. In C and C++, it just works like a function pointer. It just works like a reference variable, right? So internally, a delegate declaration specifies a class that is inherited from another class. So anything that has been inherited from the other class is mentioned or declared inside the delegates. I think people are confused now. So let me make it simple for you. So with a live example, delegate means, say for example, you are in a railway station. There are many things that's happening. What if you hear fire alarm? What will you do? You run out of that place in order to save yourself, right? If you listen to an announcement that train is being coming up the platform 2, all the passengers are requested to come to platform number 2. So if they announce, you go to that particular platform, catch your train, right? So what if the same announcement is like your train is being delayed for 6 hours? What you do? You just make a plan in order to watch a movie, get out of the place and time pass, right? So what you can understand by this, according to the event that has been occurred, how people will take decisions, right? Either it might be a positive or negative in the live example, but here in coding, it is very similar. Any event that will happen, what should be the action? So that is called delegates in simple words, right? For this event, this is the action. For event 2, action 2. For event 3, action 3. So this is how we mention and we just align it accordingly. When that event is triggered, that particular action is occurred, right? So that is how delegates work. So let's see the syntax. The delegate is a keyword which we use with return type and delegate name, also parameter list, right? So let's hop into a simple example of delegates. Let's understand how delegates work. So here is a simple example where I'm testing a delegate. That is the name which I've given to the class, a sample of delegate. So here I'm creating delegates with no parameters and no return types. So public delegate is the word which we use, keyword, void first delegate. Okay. Inside that, you have different methods, function 1, function 2, function 3. As this is function 1, this is function 2, and this is function 3 are the written statement, that is write line statements which you have. So apart from that, you have a main program or main function, main class. Class program is the name given to the class and main method is there. You have created an object and instantiation has been done for this particular object created. So we have linked this particular object with different kinds of delegates. We have 3 different delegates, right? I gave you 3 instances in the live example. Likewise, here also I'm just trying to give you a picture how a simple delegates look like. So delegate number 1, that is FD, first delegate number 1, 2, 3 is been linked with the test delegate. Whenever you invoke first delegate, it will invoke the statement which is this is function 1. Second one, if you invoke, this is function 2. Third one, if you invoke, that is function 3. So this is how this particular invocation work, right? So quickly we shall debug the program and check for errors. If not, let's see the output. Here, yes, I've called FD1, FD2 and FD3. Hence it is displaying all the console statement which we are given, that is this is function 1, this is function 2 and this is function 3. So hope this is very clear and simple what is delegates in C#. Now we'll learn regarding event handlers. So the event is a delegate that has been encapsulated. So many people can subscribe to an event. There are two important things you have to know. They are publishers and subscribers. Okay, nothing related to YouTube, but yes, it works similar to that, right? So in general, event is used in order to represent a single user activity or any response to the announcements that's been made. Say, I just gave an example of announcements in the railway station, right? So announcement is the publisher and the action you do for that is a subscription, right? They say the train is delayed for next 6 hours. What do? You plan for a movie or little sightseeing around the places. So that is the action, that is a subscription you do for the publishing that is made by the railway department. So this is what event handling is, right? Any activity that occurs due to certain scenario or situation that has been arised, then that is event handling. Relating that to the coding, how do you do that? So say for example, there is an error occurred, right? You have to handle that error. How do you handle that error? Or at least you have to convey, intercommunicate that at this particular line of code, there is an error. So that is what our IDEs will do, right? When you do some errors, the debugger will show the line or as well. In line 32, you have syntax error. If you click on that, directly it will go to that. You can just correct it and finish it off. So that is event handling, right? There is some event occurred and you have to handle that. How do you handle? You have to write that also in the code, right? What is the action? What is the reaction? So everything to be noted. So what are the different kinds of events you can notice? Key press, click button, mouse left click, right click, key press up, key press down, left, right, space, enter. So there are many events that we'll do. Usually we don't tend to think that way. But yes, whatever you do, that is an action for your computer or laptop, right? That action has some result. Say for example, you're dragging 3, 4 rows to 50 rows. You're repeating in Excel sheet. You have to print serial numbers. What you do? You press 1, 2. After selecting 1 and 2, you directly drag up to whichever number you need, 100 or 200, anything. So action, reaction, and that is the event, right? So that is a simple example which I could give for event handling with respect to live example, also with respect to coding. So apart from that, you have a syntax mentioned here, that is public event. You have to notice you have an event keyword here. For abstraction, it was abstract keyword. For event, it is event keyword. For delegate, it is delegate keyword. So everything has certain keywords which you do not forget to use. So public is an access specifier, event is a keyword, event handler, you have to write it, and event name, what you are trying to give a action or reaction to. So let's quickly see a simple example which is explaining event handlers now, right? So this is a simple example for you where you can know what is an event and how it happens. So every event should have a delegate. Without delegate, there is no events. Without publisher, there is no subscription, right? Without action, there is no reaction. Similarly, you have to have a delegate, then you can have a event handler. So if this is a situation, this is a problem, who will solve? What is the solution for that? So that's about the delegates and event handlers special. So here I've taken a class called event program sample. inside that you have this keyword, and my event has been assigned with a welcome user. Again, there's this keyword there. In welcome user, you have a string name attached. So what is the username? Whatever the username you have given here in the main method will be dragged up till there. So as soon as you log in, the concept is it has to show welcome. It might be Ram, it might be Sham, it might be Ramesh, it may be anybody. So whatever the user will log in with the username, it has to attach that, and in the main or home screen, it should show welcome so and so. Here it is welcome Ram. So in order to do this particular event or action, how does this work? So here we have welcome user. Again, welcome is a constant thing. The username will change. When you log in, it might be Ram. When some other login, it might be Suresh. Some other login, it might be Rima. So anything according to the username. So here I've just taken for instance that is Ram. Let's quickly execute and see how does this work. Right. It shows welcome Ram. If you want to change quickly, you can just change. I'll extend the name. Now it is Ramesh. Let's run. First debug and then run. Yes, welcome Ramesh. So whomever the user will be changing, everybody's name will be attached with the constant word called welcome. So that is an event that has been occurred, right? When you log in, it has to show you welcome so and so, whatever the username is. So that's about event handlers. Now we shall learn regarding LINQ. So LINQ in C# is used in order to access data from variety of sources. It might be a data sets, SQL servers, including objects, different sources. So also the XMLs. So LINQ is generally used in order to access data which has been like distributed widely. It might be some in data sets, that is DBMS, some in SQL servers, some in XML code. So all without LINQ, you cannot create that bridge between the database and the backend, right? The front and back end the database has been very much connected with the help of LINQ. So that is why we use LINQ. It has been abbreviated as language integrated query, right? So one of the use of LINQ in .NET framework, I can tell you, when you try to do some mistakes, like you don't try to do mistakes, actually when mistakes happen, when the errors occur, how it will tell you that this is the error which is there, and how will that show you the help? When you click on help, what are the different documents you can see? So everything is linked. It is already there in the database. It is linked to the front end, and without which the front end back end does not communicate. It will intercommunicate between, it acts as an interface between the front end back end, the action and the reaction, right? So here you can just see a structure of LINQ. What are the different elements that's been connected to the same? So here you have different databases, link to SQL, linking. It's LINQ is not even link, LINK link is been abbreviated here as LINQ, LINQ, but it works just like LINQ. It will link everything together, right? It will connect everything together. So link to databases, link to SQL, link to entities, and link to XML and objects as well. It might be a relational database, it may be an XML, it might be an object, anything for the matter. And it is having the communication according to the programming language you select. Whether it is VB, whether it is C#, whether it is any other Java, Python language, anything you are working on the .NET framework, ASP.NET, anything for the matter, each and every integrated query has been linked with the efficient databases. It might be anything, right? It might be a SQL or XML or an object or anything for the matter. So that's the job of LINQ. Without LINQ, we cannot communicate between, there is a huge gap. It occurs a huge gap between the front end and the back end. So we have to have a LINQ, that is language integrated query, in order to have a smooth flow of databases between the front end and the back end. The user's communication with the computer. So that's about LINQ. Coming up to the summary of this particular complete session which has been done. First, we started learning regarding exceptions, how to handle the exceptions, different types of exceptions, and also what is the structure, what are the different elements we can put up in the structure, how does the structure work. After that, we learned regarding the basic OOPS concept. Name it. It might be polymorphism, encapsulation, inheritance, interface, abstraction, many more, right? So after that, we learned regarding delegates, how to create a delegate, how to create an event handling process, like how does that work, how they both are interconnected. So without action, there is no reaction, right? You have to have a publisher, then only you have a subscriber for that. So we learned about these things in delegates and event handlers. Apart from that, we also learned a very important concept, that is LINQ. So language integrated query. It is a main interface. This is a main intercommunication that happens between the computer, the front end, and the back end with the databases. So whatever you try to save it in your database, your data, it is saved with the help of LINQ. It might be of any type of database, SQL, XML, objects, anything for the matter. So we learned all the uses of LINQ and why do we use, what the types of links, what are the different programming language, how does it support. So that's about this video. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed for our channel yet, I would request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on notification bell so that you don't miss any new updates or video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoy this video, show us some love and do like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing, so make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure you comment on this video. Any queries or suggestions, I'll be more than happy to respond to all of them.